students. Hope you all are fine. Today we are moving on to our next lesson, that is Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood, written by Anish Jung. We all know that spring is the most vibrant and beautiful of all seasons. This gorgeous season brings that temperament which provides outdoor adventures. Similarly, childhood is also like the spring of life, for it has unadulterated joys, happiness and playfulness. But here, in this lesson, Anish Jung is not speaking anything related to the beauty of childhood. Moreover, she just wants to tell something else other than that. In the sense, the writer presents here the grim and desolate picture of underprivileged children, those who are condemned to poverty. These children have lost all their happiness of life, and moreover, they have no fun. Then another thing is that they have to become adults before age. Here, Anish Jung requests all the state and central bureaucratic authorities and elders have to leap out of their smugness, and at the same time she reminds the importance of reinstating and re-establishing the spring which has lost from the lives of these poor deprived ones from our society. So before moving in detail to the text, let's have a look at author's description. See, Anish Jung is an Indian female author, journalist and columnist who writes for major newspapers in India and abroad. She was born in 1964 in Rourkela and belongs to an aristocratic family in Hyderabad. She received her education both from Hyderabad and United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Anish Jung too had begun her career as a writer in India. This lesson is an excerpt from Anish Jung's book titled Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. The story revolves around the hospitable conditions of poor children. And here we are seeing the story is divided into two parts. And in the first part, the writer tells about Simapuri. Simapuri is quite well known for rag pickers and for rag picking. And there the miserable conditions of people of Simapuri is being explained. And in the next episode, in the second part, so she just mentions about Firozabad, so where the conditions, the pathetic situations of people lived there in Firozabad is being explained there in that particular second episode. See, now we are moving on to our lesson. All of you have noticed what the subtitle been made by Anish Jung. So you two are quite astonished by reading it, isn't it? Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. We have no link, no idea why she just started in that way. And just below it, it is seen, why do you do this? Okay, that's a conversation. Let's read up to this, and then important points I have noted here. But first of all, we read, why do you do this? I ask Sahab, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Sahab left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him that's why they left looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. So we have seen this lost spring, that is a revelatory description of the lives of underprivileged children. The people, those who are living in such a poor, poverty, penury state of life. About the life of those children is being visualized here or depicted here by Anish Jung. Anish Jung, we have seen, she just refers to the joys of childhood which has snatched away because of the circumstances. Here also we could see such an instance that had happened in the life of Sahab. So Sahab is the protagonist in this story. And he is an young boy. And at the same time he is a refugee. It is written here as he is a Bangladesh refugee. And before moving in detail about these refugees, we just have to get something regarding that place. Where is this Dhaka? Dhaka is there in Bangladesh. And Dhaka is the capital of Bangladesh, and that is in the southern Asia. And see, the specialty of the place is that so every year, so these Bangladeshis have to face unpredictable vagaries of weather. Flash floods are quite common there. Heavy rainfalls, that is lashing the city, not only that, as well as their country too, their entire country too. And here, Sahab is an expatriate from Dhaka. Abject poverty and extreme hunger had made his life miserable. So there is no any other provision for his family. So we have seen that their family has hailed from Bangladesh, and so there is no further provision for them to stay there. So for their livelihood, they just decided to shift to metro cities. And here in this first episode, Sahab is shifted to Simapuri. And Simapuri stands for that big city we have seen here. See, now that is why they left. They stands for Sahab and his family. They left looking for gold in the big city. See, this big city stands for that metro city where they are surviving. And what is their job? They are scrounging for something valuable. So another thing I just want to mention here, what is the goal here for these poor people? Come to our subtitle. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage, in the sense this gold is a rupee in the garbage, in those rubbish heaps, that waste. That is, this gold is a rupee in the garbage. Here they are not making a closure to their lives. Moreover, these children have an optimistic attitude towards life. That is quite visible here. Though the circumstances forces them to engage. So here is a question. See, why do you do this? What is the answer? I have nothing else to do, he mutters. He says that though nothing else to occupy, so what I am doing? I am just scrounging inside these rubbish heaps, because I am quite sure I could expect something valuable there from this rubbish waste. Here we could see the picture of Sahab. So he is a rag picker. Now we are moving on to the next conversation between Anis Jung and this boy. See, go to school. I say glibly. What is the meaning of that? That is without any care. See, it is an hollow advice on the part of this Anis Jung. Simply she just asking, so why you people are wandering all over here? Just go and educate yourself. Isn't so there nearby to your home there may be some school. Isn't elementary schools are available there? Just go and study something. Isn't why you wandering here? See, so in such a manner she just expresses this and says, go to school. So I said, and immediately how hollow the advice must sound. Carelessly she just spoken that statement. And there is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I go. And if I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. And a few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. But promises of mine bound in every corner of his bleak world. So here we have to see one thing. How the author introduces a matter to him. So here in this conversation, she just asking, very carelessly she just spoken to that person. Even though at first the child is not interested, or yet the child is a little bit irritated at the trespassers' dialogues. Here says that, see, but there is no school in my neighborhood. So though there is nothing else, so what I have to do? Here we could see the disposition of this child, the nature of this child is being seen here. And the same next line gives, when they build one, I'll go, if so. So if somebody else, they build stands for the authorities, the responsible persons. If they build one, so I too was quite happy to go to school, in the sense that that willingness is being shown. So he says that I'm ready to go to school. Okay, so here in this line, another point we have to note that this child also has aspirations to achieve something, but the possibilities are less in front of him. So he says that if somebody else build one, I am willing, I am ready. So though there is no school, so we have to go. That pathetic situation of the poor penury people is seen here in this line. If I start a school, will you come? Whether you are ready. So very jokingly she just says these words. And what is the answer here? So all of a sudden he responded positively. A few days later we have seen this person running to her and just asked the question. She thought that he may forget about the matter, but what happened is that, so he just asked, so what about your institution? You just said that you promised me that you will build an institution for us. So what about it? So what, the construction work is going on or not? So this is the question the child immediately asked when she had seen her. What is her answer? She was completely blushed. See here, is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school. That shows, so she is quite daunted to the question and answering such a manner that she absolutely sorry, because it takes a little bit the longer to build that school, and at the same time embarrassed at having made such a hollow promise, empty promise at this poor children's comment, is it? But the promises like mine abound in every corner. So what is seen here? We know that Sahab is quite living in such a deprived conditions. Anybody taken this seriously or gravely? That is another question. The political authorities, they're just making better facilities. But these empty promises made, where it carried out or not? Moreover, what is happening here? That is simply echoing, or that is quite abounded in his bleak, joyless, poverty-stricken world. That is what happens in the present life. Now let's move on to our next paragraph. See, after months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Sahab Alam. He answers, he does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, the Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. So over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. Now they become quite amicable and being good friends, isn't? So have a good relationship with these boys. And so when she has seen him, she just asked a question. So by the way, so what is your name? And come to know that his name is Sahab Alam. So the meaning of that is Lord of the universe. Please underline that in your text. Lord of the universe. But what is happening here? The Lord stands for the king, the emperor of the universe. Unfortunately, rather than being blessed with the comforts of the life or riches and pleasures of the life, what happens to this unfortunate guy? He just simply roams along with his bare feet friends. But he enjoys it anyway. That is what we have seen here in this paragraph. Over the months, I have come to recognize them. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answers simply. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shovels his feet and says nothing. I want shoes. Says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot. In cities, on village roads, it is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot. Is one explanation. I wonder if This is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. So we have seen after months of knowing him, so they became friends, and she expressed her eagerness to know much more about these rag pickers and their whereabouts. And here the author just asked him what is his name, and we have seen that he is just explaining about his name. After that, so one by one he just want to know much more about these children. Here in this stanza we have seen, so different reasons are given from the part of the boys regarding the chappals that they were not at all wearing. And among this, one boy said that, see, mother did not bring them down from the shelf, that is the reason I can't wear it at all. It is considered as something precious and she kept there inside the cupboard. But the other person added that even if that mother did bring them down, that person will throw them off. He won't wear it at all. And a third person, said beautiful pleasant person who is standing nearby to these two guys, said that, see, and he expressed a desire unlike others. So this person want to wear, in the sense he expressed a desire to wear shoes which he had never owned all his life. This type of people are there everywhere. We could see the children had a tendency to blame parents, to criticize the parents if they needed it or not. It's none of their business. Moreover, they're just finding fault with them, or in the sense that they lodge complaints upon the parents. This is what we have seen here too. So one child had desire to wear it, and one explanation that we have seen, one of the explanation is that it is not lack of money but a tradition to stay barefoot. So they says that is their tradition to stay barefoot. So not due to lack of money. But later Ernst Jung analyzed and come to the conclusion that it is not anything regarded to this tradition. It is an excuse that is being raised from their part to hide their perpetual state of poverty. So this is what you come to know. This is the fact and this is the real truth that prevailed. Now let's move on to our next paragraph. So this is a story. See, I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest, and he would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys, like the son of the priest, now wore shoes. But many others, like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, still remain shoeless. Why Ernst Jung narrated the story? You're getting the matter, isn't it? So because she is quite pained. What is the reason? Because by the fact that, see, the rag pickers are still barefoot. See, that is a story a man from Udupi so had told, that as an young boy he would go to school, and when he was passing by the temple where his father sermonizing or doing the service, so he stood there and he prayed, or every day he prayed for a pair of shoes. And 30 years later, Ernst Jung visited his town and the temple, and see, in the backyard, so where a new priest is living there nearby to the other family members, a young boy she had seen, and that boy is dressed in grey uniform. Is in the stylish way he is wearing that dress, and not only the elegant look of the boy, moreover, Something else also been seen there. What is that? So the child is wearing that shoes and socks. During that moment, she just think about something else happened years back in her life. These boys, sir, later, years after, these children have that opportunity to wear the shoes. But what about these underprivileged children, those who are living in this Ants Jung's neighborhood, or they are in Simapuri? So that is in the outskirts of Delhi, they are just living. So what is the pathetic condition these people are undergoing? So she is quite pained at that thought and says that, see, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, so they still remain shoeless. Now we will just go to the next paragraph and see where they are living. So what about the lifestyle? My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Sahab's family is one among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it is no longer empty in structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voters' list and enable them to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here rather than in the fields that gave us no grain. Say a group of women in tattered saris. When I asked them why they left that beautiful land of green fields and rivers, whenever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. See, here we have seen the people of Simapuri were migrants from Bangladesh, and moreover, they are being considered as the neglected ones. Ernest Jung's acquaintance with these barefoot rag pickers led her to Simapuri, and clearly it is given here. Where is that Simapuri situated? Simapuri, that is a place on the periphery of Delhi, and the people, those who live here are squatters. So they are not legally live there. Unlawful residents are there. So their regarding their abode is what being written by the author. So here we have to bring certain points to our mind. That is, this Simapuri that being seen at the outskirts of Delhi and this metropolitan city of Delhi, it has stark contrast in the sense that there is an exemplary contradiction between metropolitan city of Delhi with that of the Simapuri, which is situated at the outskirts of Delhi. And we know that the Delhi is been standing for a luxurious place, isn't it? So urban, flashy lights, the dazzling, the twinkling, the beauty, that has been seen everywhere, is it? So there are enough opportunities for the people to live, to enjoy themselves. But what about Simapuri? That's a place quite filled with squalor, dirt, filthy place. Moreover, that's a place of hopelessness. And at any cost, the inhabitants of that area have no chance to strive towards the attainment of the prospects of the Delhi. In such a situation, these people are living there at Simapuri, and they are being considered as the neglected segment of the society. I just want to ask you one question: whether the quality of the life of these people maintained? What is the purpose of election and political process? So they are quite pivotal for a good governance. But whether the quality of the life of the people, those who are casting votes, so that is being maintained or not by these political leaders? No, absolutely not at all. These poor people to cast vote, and for what purpose they cast vote? Only for their existence, isn't it? To buy something, some grain for their offspring. Have a look at the text, what's written there. At least their names are there in the voters list that enable them to buy grain. For every people, food is important for the survival than their identity. What is happened here is that once they lived in this beautiful land of the green world of rivers, fields, and that beauty, but something else had compelled them to pitch their tents wherever they find food, as if like nomads. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And surviving Simapuri means rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. But for a child, it is even more. See here, 2 points we just have to underline. Children grow up in them and they become the partners in their survival. So see, the circumstances compelled them to engage in this task of scrounging. And see here, another point we just have to bring to our mind is Simapuri, that is, the surviving Simapuri means rag picking. There is no further professional job other than this rag picking. Next point is also important for us. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of fine art. What do you mean by this? Because by expertising, by exploring here in this job, what happened? So they become experts in this adventurous task. So later they said that it has acquired the proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. This is what again and again she is striking, in the sense that this is something valuable. The life of Simapuri is rag picking, and moreover these rubbish heaps for the world is something gold for these poor people, for these unfortunate guys. That is something gold or valuable. And why it is being said so? Because it is their daily bread. Moreover, that is a roof over their heads. Even if it is a leaking roof, so that is something precious for them. And for the child also, in the sense they become partners in this survival. That is what we have seen here in this paragraph. See, now we are moving on to our next paragraph. That is, I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note. Sahab says, his eyes lighting up. And when you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is a hope of finding more. It seems that for children, the garbage has a different meaning from what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For elders, it is a means of survival. This is very important part of this episode. See? So here says that sometimes I find a rupee. So you already have seen garbage is something gold for them. Sometimes I find a rupee. Maybe in certain cases I could expect a 10 rupee note. So it says that, see, when it is, they are quite excited. So they just been in a delirious world, very happy moment for them. And his eyes quite lighting up. And when you find a silver coin among these garbage heaps, they won't stop the scrounging. Moreover, it gives a hope for them. Hope for what? Hope for finding more and more. They see it as a game, or otherwise they consider it as an adventurous task, though it being arduous on one side. But for them, this is an adventurous thing. They love that one. Writing matter for these children. But something else is different here. What is that? That is what we are going to see. That is, garbage to them is gold. This stands for the whole rag pickers. But something is different for children. For them, this is something wonder. So it has something hidden inside there. That beauty is what they just want to scrounge and find out. They're just rummaging inside these rubbish heaps to find out that. But for poor elders, they have not a wondrous thing. This, moreover, this is that means that help them in their battle of survival. Because that is the only means of income for these people. So one winter morning, I see Saab standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game he hunts, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around. He admits the gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Sahab too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shoes. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them. That does not bother him, for one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole, it is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. Let's again one more time just go through the main points here. Winter morning, Sahab is standing nearby to the fenced gate of our Anish Jung's neighborhood, is it? And there, so watching two young men, so they are in that tennis dress, and at the same time, so they are just engaged in playing. And he was quite curious and anxious and just want to watch the play. So by the grace of God, the kind gatekeeper permits him, and he just entered there and he just watching that game so intently. So here 2 points are written here. Discolored shirt and shorts he wearing along with the discarded shoes. So that may be possible because his wish to some extent fulfilled. That is, for a person like him having a hole there in the shoe, it's okay for him because it is a dream come true. But she is quite dubious in another matter. What was that? See, the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. What's the reason? So we have seen the child is quite fascinated the game and intently watching it, and he possesses that tennis shoe, and that desire is quite fulfilled. But what about that professional training? For this professional training and coaching, lot more things needed. The person have to buy enough accessories for that, is it? And moreover, a perfect coach is also important. So for these accessories and training, a huge amount. So whether that could be affordable by this child. So till up to this paragraph, Anish Jung presented Sahab as a very sincere person, very innocent one, open-minded guy, is in everything free and frank and bold enough to say whatever he just want to tell, isn't? But the coming paragraph, she just presents him as a matured person, as a solemn person. Is a bit seriousness being seen here because he has lost that carefree look. Let's read and see. So what she just want to tell to us regarding this. This morning, Sahab is on his way to milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now walk in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I'm paid 800 rupees and all my meals. Does he like the job, I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly. Then over his shoulder, the bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahab is no longer his own master. One morning, as usual, the author sees Sahab his way to the milk booth. And during this time, he is carrying a steel canister. And he informs the author that now he works at the tea stall, and not only that, he is paid rupees 800 along with the meals. But the author feels that the person is not quite happy at all. So he has lost all his vigor and vitality. Isn't that happiness is not being seen in his face. Usually he is quite active, but on that day, though he gains enough money, but some gloomy beings visible there in his face. His face, I see, has lost that carefree look. Here in one way we could say that, so he has lost his individuality, or he has lost his freedom. So rummaging along with his bare feet friends, he is quite enjoyed that life. So he has a liberty. There is no worries and tensions, nothing else being there with a child, is it? But now there to augment, what is the meaning of augment? To increase the earning of the family. He has taken that burden upon his shoulder, is it? So it is now his responsibility to look after his family. So he does it, but at the same time, the author says that he has lost his freedom. Since freedom for what? See the line. See, the Sahab is now no longer his own master. In the sense, he does the job for somebody else. But at a time, so there is a plastic bag with him. He enjoys it, he carries it, he has a group of people, friends there. So very free and frank life he led during that time. But now what is happened is that the responsibility being upon his shoulders, and due to that what happened, he has lost his identity. That is what we have seen here in this paragraph. Now let's have a look at the main points. So we have seen the first part described the plight of poor ragpickers of Simapuri. And we know that Simapuri, where it is at the outskirts of Delhi. And what about the lifestyle of people there? That also we have seen. Then the name, the irony in Sahab's name. That also we have seen. His name is Lord of the Universe, and but what is happened to his life? So he is just living in abject poverty, and that is also reflected there in that stanza. So then another point that is been emphasized by Ernst Jung is that regarding the garbage, what is this garbage stands for, and why they just stressed that this garbage for them is gold. That is also we have seen. Another point is that the main one, Sahab at last, he is working in a tea stall, and whether he is happy. And we are coming to the last and main point that he is not at all happy. Moreover, he not more a free bird, but at last he is being seen as a bonded laborer. That is what we have seen in that paragraph in that first episode.